Blade the Daywalker has finally arrived in Marvel Rivals, and what I have for you today is the ultimate guide or masterclass for Blade. We're talking abilities, we're talking playstyle, and of course we're talking about what you should be looking out for. But without further ado, I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now for its abilities, Blade actually has two different primary weapons, both the Ancestral Sword and the Hunter's Shotgun. With the Ancestral Sword, you slash forward with Blade's, Ancestral Sword. Pretty self-explanatory. It's a close-ranged melee attack that's pretty self-explanatory. Blade's secondary quote-unquote weapon is the Hunter's Shotgun, where you fire at enemies using your shotgun. Now there's something a little bit interesting with the shotgun. It's actually a slug shotgun, meaning that it does well in medium range. For whatever reason, in terms of being super close to your target, it doesn't really do that much damage. There's a little bit of a sweet spot. About 10-ish meters, it does an absurd amount of damage. Anything beyond 10 meters doesn't really do any damage, so you want to play about 10 meters away if you want to get the full effect. Now you can land critical shots, so I definitely encourage you to, aim for the head, as it's going to be doing a ton more damage. Now Blade's alternative fire, secondary fire, whatever you want to call it, is SCARLET SHROUD. You parry with the Ancestral Sword to become unstoppable for a brief period, reducing damage taken from only the front and decreasing the cooldown of Daywalker dash. Now the damage reduction it actually applies is around 80%, so it means you can practically survive a ton of different ultimates. And it does have a recharge bar, kind of like Jeff when he's diving underground. You have a certain amount of time you can hold the block for. But regardless how long you hold it for, or if you just tap the block, it's going to be on a 3-second cooldown the second you let go of the block. So of course that is something to keep in mind. Now like I was saying, when you're taking damage in the blocking stance, it will decrease the cooldown of your Daywalker dash ability. Now you might be wondering, what is the Daywalker dash ability? Well, it's great that you asked. Now when it comes to the Daywalker dash, the default ability is essentially you just dash forward, but depending on what weapon you have out will change the outcome of what the dash does. When you're wielding the Hunter's Shotgun, you do the dash forward, then you shoot at enemies upon impact, applying a healing reduction effect. That healing reduction effect is 40%. However, if you're wielding the Ancestral Sword, you'll still do the dash forward, and you deliver a cleaving strike that inflicts slow. Now when you compare the stats of the Daywalker dash between the two, that being wielding the shotgun or wielding the sword, when wielding the Ancestral Sword, it doesn't do a crazy amount of damage, but it does a decent amount of damage. Now in my opinion, when you're using the Daywalker dash, the whole point of this ability isn't necessarily to do the damage, it's to do the applying effect, whether that being the reduced healing or the slow effect. And for me personally, I think you always want to be going for the reduced healing, because reduced healing in a game like Marvel Rivals is just crazy, so you should probably always do that. But there's always going to be the occasions where applying that slowing effect is a good idea as well. So at the end of the day, it's really up to you. Now following that, we come to Bloodline Awakening. This is on E button, or the specialty button 1 for mouse and keyboard, but basically you awaken the Daphne Bloodline, enhancing slash speed during continuous attacks and triggering whirlwind slashes. While under this state, you suffer reduced healing, but attacks gain lifesteal. The reduced healing is 50%, meaning if teammates heal you, it's going to be 50% less. If you walk over health packs, it's also going to be... Now, the whole idea about this ability is the second you activate it, because it's infinite time, you literally are just constantly in people's faces trying to get that lifesteal as much as you can, trying to survive as long as you can. Now, I'll actually how to explain when to use it and how to better use it later on in the video, so make sure to stick through. Blade's ultimate is 1000-fold slash. You charge power and swiftly draw the Sword of Dracula, executing a powerful strike as you dash forward, leaving behind a stabbing zone where the sword automatically strikes enemies, and enemies hit suffer that reduced healing. Again, that reduced healing number is 40%, and this ultimate can kill through strategist ultimates. It just does an insane amount of damage. It's probably going to be getting tweaked or nerfed eventually, but besides that, it also plays the Blade music, so how can you not like this ultimate? Now Blade's team-up ability is with both Moon Knight and Cloak and Dagger, and it's titled New Moon. Cloak and Dagger can eject light and dark energy into Moon Knight and Blade to create a light and dark realm where Moon Knight and Blade can become invisible and gain healing over time. Now Blade also gains an ability while inside of this new moon. The Blade can unleash Swift Strike toward a targeted enemy. Now not only that, I don't think anyone else has really mentioned this, which is pretty cool, is that if Moon Knight is on your team and he uses the team up, you can walk into his new moon ability and you don't have to use your own. And vice versa, Moon Knight can walk into your new moon and get the healing, so a pretty cool thing. And today's video is sponsored by me, Duck Films. So if you can do me a favor of hitting that like and subscribe button, it greatly helps me out, greatly helps out the channel, and keeps allowing me to make these videos. It's been a dream of mine to do this full time, and every little bit helps, so thank you so much. But that's enough about that. Let's go into our playstyle, tips and tricks, and much more. Now, Blade's playstyle is a little bit interesting. He thrives at mid-range using his hunting shotgun to poke enemies down, chipping away at their health with precise shots that can headshot for devastating effect. And I will say, instead of necessarily burst damage, Blade really specializes in wearing opponents down over time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, once the target is low enough, you want to use Daywalker Dash, a lightning fast sword lunge that closes the distance, and you can either use it with the Ancestral Sword or you can use it with the hunting shotgun. How I found it is that if you're not going to have a guarantee on the elimination, then I would always choose the hunting shotgun because you can get in instantly, apply that healing reduction effect, so you're cutting off any chances of healing recovery from the enemy's teammates. And it's honestly like the perfect execution tool. Pick them apart from range, dash into them to finish the job with style. That's like the whole idea. Again, poking from range, then closing the distance. Now you can either play Blade that way by poking from a distance and then closing the gap, or you can play it another way, which is a little bit of a vanguard or a tank bully. Now again, Blade applies healing reduction. That reduction, again, 40%. That means if a tank or a frontline vanguard was somehow in your own team's backline, or you're hooking a vanguard into your team as Winter Soldier and you're playing with a Blade, you can apply that healing reduction and just absolutely shred that tank down. Tank will never be able to receive that necessary healing he needs, and unfortunately he's another case of where it's going to be a vanguard bully and kind of a diving or brawling duelist as well. Now, following that, Blade is way better suited in 1v1 scenarios unless he has his ultimate ready to go, but for the most part you want to take 1v1 duels, or you want to look for the squishier targets that are not going to be doing a ton of damage to you, because that's how you're going to be really able to optimize his kit to get those much needed critical eliminations. Because when you look at his kit and you look at Daywalker Dash, you dash forward and you shoot at one enemy upon impact, and you apply that healing reduction to one enemy. Of course, you can dash again to a different opponent, but for the most part, you're dashing to one opponent and it's going for that isolated fight. And the same can be said when he uses his Ancestral Sword and does dash as well. So again, I find him best suited in those 1v1 scenarios. But with that being said, you can kind of go for a 1vx if you wanted to by using the Daywalker Dash and getting into the fight, whether it's using the Ancestral Sword or a hunting shotgun. Again, I prefer using the hunting shotgun to apply the reduced healing effect. I think it's just a very strong tool in his kit that you should probably use as much as you can. But after dashing in and using the Daywalker Dash, you immediately go into Bloodline Awakening. Again, you awaken the Bloodline, enhancing the slashing speed during continuous attacks and triggering the Whirlwind Slash. Following that, while under this state, you suffer reduced healing, which again, 50% out of outside sources, so from your teammates and your health packs. But the trade-off is you gain the vampirism or the lifesteal attack, whatever you want to call it. And the whole idea is once you use those abilities, you're kind of sticking onto your opponent like glue. Slashing them down while they're trying to escape or regroup is kind of like the whole idea in my opinion. But basically, in summary, the whole idea of Blade's kit is to apply those debuffs, whether it's the slow or the healing reduction, and literally just be a nuisance to the entire enemy team as much as possible. There is a ton of survival tools in Blade's kit, so you shouldn't really be getting picked off, or you shouldn't really be getting eliminated while you're fighting and brawling in the front line, midline, or even backline. But those were my little 3 or 4 playstyle and gameplay loops you want to be looking to use as Blade. Now again, a playstyle can change, gameplay loops can change, the whole identity of Blade can change, but essentially that's what you're trying to go for. Now we enter the tips and tricks section of this video. After the tips and tricks section, we're going to do combos, then lastly counters. But anyways, for our tips and tricks, there's a couple that I think are pretty important. The first one is the interaction of the Bloodline Awakening and his ultimate 1000-fold slash. Now we all know that the Bloodline Awakening does make him get reduced healing, but he gains lifesteal. And his 1000-fold slash or ultimate ability is you dash forward and you do a ton of damage. So a big tip for this is if you find yourself on, kind of low HP, medium HP, but regardless, if you're looking for HP, you want to use your Bloodline Awakening because you gain that lifesteal, and then use your 1000-fold slash because that lifesteal procs on the ultimate. So you literally go from like 0 to 100 health in literally a second. It's pretty solid if you're looking for that. But again, the risk is you have reduced healing from outside sources of 50%. But I truly think it's worth just doing it, because after you use your ultimate, you'll still be in that Bloodline Awakened state and will be able to finish off any enemies or gain extra HP from any enemies that live or are almost on the verge of getting eliminated. Now, the second tip that I have for Blade is that if you go into your settings, you go to keyboard and combat and you choose Blade specifically, you go down to the heroes section, there's actually an ability where it says switch to shotgun when Bloodline Awakening ends. So this is a very interesting setting. For the most part, when you're using Bloodline Awakening, you're going to be super up close and personal to the enemies. Now, whether to turn this setting on or have it off, I think is completely up to the individual, which is yourself when you're playing Blade. And I say that because when you're playing Blade and you use the Bloodline Awakening ability, again, you're going to be up close trying to get that lifesteal. After ending the Bloodline Awakening ability, it's up to you of what you want to do. Do you want to then dash in with the Daywalker dash to get the reduced healing on enemies, or do you want to use the sword to apply a slowing effect? For me personally, I have this ability actually off. I find it when I use the Bloodline Awakening ability, I'm super up close and personal with the enemy. I then exit out of the Bloodline Awakening ability, use the Daywalker dash with the Ancestral Sword, apply that slow, then re-enable the Bloodline Awakening ability so it can stick onto my enemy target like glue. And again, like I previously mentioned, this all depends on how you actually want to play Blade yourself. For me, I found the most success when I did it this way. Of course, there's other arguments in other ways, which is completely fine, completely valid. It's all dependent on you. That's just what I do, and you can either follow it or don't. Completely up to you. Now we come to the combo section of the video. Now, this part is super beneficial, and I would say finding out your own combos is also super helpful, but I'll just give you some base combos that I found are particularly good. Now, this first combo is what I like to call the Hunter Shotgun combo. Of course, it probably has a different variety of names by now, but this is kind of like what I found is super beneficial. To begin the combo, first use the Hunter Shotgun to apply a headshot or a body shot, whatever you find is easier in the moment. Now, after landing the shot, immediately use the Daywalker dash. You dash in, you apply that reduced healing effect. From there, you can follow up by another headshot. Now, like I was saying, after landing the Daywalker dash and using another extra shot of the Hunter Shotgun, you can either finish the elimination with the Hunter Shotgun, or you can immediately swap into Bloodline Awakening, press shift with the Daywalker dash again, finish with the Bloodline Awakening. It's whatever you want to do, whatever you find most beneficial to yourself. Now, this next combo is actually from an animation cancel I found over on the early access, but I'm not going to take credit for it or anything because it's a really easy, straightforward animation cancel. But basically, you can primary attack with the Hunter Shotgun and press your Bloodline Awakening, which is on the E on mouse and keyboard at the same exact time, so you land a headshot and it immediately swaps into the Bloodline Awakening. You cancel the animation of the shotgun reloading itself, so you can use it to do some super quick combos. Primary attack with the Hunter Shotgun, then do the animation cancel with the E ability, go immediately into the shift, and you can easily melt down an enemy. Now, this next combo kind of combines the two that I previously mentioned. So you're gonna first start off by using the Hunter Shotgun. You attack with the Hunter Shotgun, immediately then use the Daywalker dash. And when a Daywalker dash goes off and you land the reduced healing, you shoot again, but at the same time you apply that animation cancel and you can instantly melt the enemy. But what is this combo actually useful for? Say you have a target that's about 10-15 meters. You have the Hunter Shotgun out, you do the primary attack into the Bloodline Awakening ability, followed by an immediate Daywalker dash. This allows you to do a burst headshot, then instantly swap into Bloodline Awakening and instantly close the gap. allowing to, follow up that headshot damage to kind of burst the target down. Now, this is rather useful and can be applied in a lot of different scenarios, and I highly encourage you to use it if you want to. Now, it wouldn't be a Duck Films guide video without counters. How do we counter Blade? Basically, you want to be thinking about characters with strong burst damage who have mid to long range capabilities. In a way, it's similar to how you counter magic in a similar sense. And when you're actually countering magic, you're thinking of characters like Hawkeye, who has mid to long range, who can one-tap a lot of the characters in this game. You have Winter Soldier, who does just a ton of burst damage from medium, close, long range. That could probably be on par with Blade with a ton of different abilities. You have Punisher, keeping that medium to long range capabilities. You can throw Hela into the lot, who does a ton of long range damage. When I'm thinking of strategists, I'm thinking of Adam Warlock because of his soul bond ability. So if he were to ult or try to jump onto you, you have that ability. And when you're looking at characters for frontline or your Vanguard characters to counter a character like Blade, you're thinking about characters who can easily isolate Blade from the rest of his team. When I'm thinking of characters that isolate him as a Vanguard, I'm thinking characters like Groot, who can wall him off from the rest of his team. Thinking of Emma Frost, who can grab him and kick him away from his team. And those are kind of like the really only options I have in mind right now. And like I was saying, going back to the strategist section, I told you about Adam Warlock. Probably Ultron is up there as well, keeping that medium to long range presence. He has infinite range essentially as Ultron, so he can just be relatively annoying. Again, he's going to be constantly flying, not the easiest target to hit if the character is super mobile. Iron Man, Human Torch are all another really good counters to this character, and that's really about it. But anyways, hopefully this guide has helped you in any way, shape, or form. And if you want to see more standout hero guides, masterclasses on different roles, or any Marvel Rivals related content, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I have videos coming out every other day, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so I highly encourage you to check them out. But regardless, I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.